Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the We Are Mission podcast, a podcast of Missio Scotland. I am Gerard Goff, the Communications Officer, and I am delighted to be joined by Sister Mary Thomas, a Comboni Sister, also known as Helen Johnson. Sister, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us today.
And thank you for inviting me to do so.
Sister, just give us a wee bit of information on your background. Where did you grow up and things like that, and what was life like growing up?
Well, I was born over in Garrow Hill, which was a new scheme at the time and supposed to be quite posh, according to another missioner called Tom, I think it was Father Tolan, comes from Baillieston. And he said, well, it was a toffee part, no? But we were very quickly, had to get out of there, I think, money-wise. So from about when I was 9 or 10, we went down to Partick Way, Whiteinch, and very normal type of life, went through primary school, hated secondary school. I don't know, some people loved it, but I hated it, and left. But I also did music, so I wanted to train as full-time professional musician. And then a terrible thing happened. They had the Kelvin Hall exhibition of religious vocations, I think for the second time. And a friend of mine actually put my name down on the CTS for helping on the stand. But she didn't put her own name down, she put my name down and another friend's. Okay. And I went very unwillingly, but I went because of an intervention, I think, of somebody upstairs. And I think because I'm not going to that. And I told her. But then the note came in, would you please give us the terms that you're, and days that you can. So I thought, well, they don't know I didn't volunteer. And if everybody pulls out at the last minute, they'll have nobody. So I put a couple of hours down. And the first night I went, I met the Sisters of Verona, as they were called at the time. And boom, I felt I had to try my vocation. My friend said to me, oh, she says, your vocation's the same as mine. But married and have 10 kids. But it stuck with me so hard that I was in there every day as far as I could, and entered in 1961, did my training down in London, and 1964. And at that time, they didn't tell you where you were going or what ask you what you would like to do. You just went where they told you. And when I was sent down to Italy, and then they said, "Oh, you're leaving on the 10th." This was Rome. To go to Rome, you're leaving on the 10th to Rome. This was the 2nd. So I got my stuff ready, went down to Rome, and they said to me in Rome, so are you happy that you're going to the mission? I said, why am I? They said, well, they said, you're going to Eritrea. Oh, where's that? And this is quite literally, I said, where's that?
Yeah.
No. Eritrea, of course, is an Italian colony. And we started off as an Italian congregation. Now we're very international. But at that time, I was sent out there. And when I look back, I say, well, I know some language there, the Tigray language, but I don't really know how to speak the language. And yet I do, because I speak perfect Italian, because I learned it there.
Yeah.
So I was there. I thought I was going out to, T. Swain's under the tree. Nice, somebody. Forget it. I arrived on the Sunday. On the Monday, they changed my destination. And on the Thursday, I started teaching English at the Pre-University College of Asmara, which is the capital of Eritrea.
Wow. So see if we just go back a wee bit and dial a wee bit, because we'll get to we'll talk a wee bit more about your vocation a bit more fully. Did you come from quite a big family?
Oh, it was very big.
Yeah.
I'm the only one.
Right,
well,
okay.
I had a wee brother. I had a wee brother who he took one look at me and disappeared. I was only 11 months old. He was born Tommy, baptized by the doctor and died. That's it. And ruined my mother for having any other children. So that was me on my own. But the beautiful thing is that when it came to saying to my family, to my mother and father, my father answered me, if you have been chosen by God, we are privileged.
Wow.
But I didn't realize the sacrifice that I was laying on their shoulders.
Yeah.
But they did
Absolutely.
it.
And you said that you were really good at music at school.
Oh yes, I
What
liked.
what did you like? What instruments did you play?
Well, the piano.
Piano.
Because we didn't have a piano. Somebody had stored their piano in our house. No, I was born just before the war, 1 year in war. So we had this piano, and so my daddy said it would be good if I learned the piano. When I was 6, I started learning piano, and I was quite good at it. And I did all the exams of the thing and finished within the RCM, and then went on to teach English, of course. These
Yeah.
are the daft things. But I used my music a lot, really, at the beginning, because I taught the other sisters music. I taught singing, choir music, and such and such. So I've always kept interest there until now. In fact, no, 20 years ago, because then I was sent to the desert.
Yeah.
No piano.
No pianos in the desert.
So
Do you still play?
I wish I could,
Nah.
but and then I fell
Right.
about a year ago and dislocated my, and at my age, the muscles don't want to come back.
Yeah.
But never mind, I'll try again if I get a piano.
So you were quite musical. Were you quite linguistic? Did you like languages at school? And
Oh, yes. Yeah, but the trouble was, they were teaching us French, and I wanted to learn Spanish.
right, yeah.
And somebody had given me a Spanish grammar book, and I had it under the table. I'm doing Spanish, and she's teaching me French. So both of them went.
Yeah. And what about mum and dad? What did they do for a living?
My dad was an ordinary working man. He, well, at the beginning for Catholics, the depression hit them hard. So he he worked as a bookies runner.
Right, okay.
My mother there as well, was an Irish bookie, and it was illegal at the time, of course, and there was other undertones, unfortunately, but that was it in that time.
Yeah.
And the undertone was the IRA.
Right,
But
okay.
they didn't know anything about that. They knew everything about it. That was the scene. And then my daddy had cut his apprenticeship short, depression, get rid of who you can. So he was 1 year short. But he worked in Hillington as a tool maker,
Right, okay.
which was a good job at the time, and he worked a wee bit with the shipyards, but that was during the war because they wouldn't take him in as a soldier.
Right, okay.
Because he was valuable as a worker, making guns and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. And he worked there, worked in Paisley, worked in Hillington, all his life doing that job.
A
He's a good
hard-working man.
mechanic.
Yeah.
He's a good mechanic,
Yeah.
Taught me to drive as well.
And did mum look after the house?
Mum, my mother, yes, she was good at that, but when I was 12 or 11, she left, started doing work to keep me at school,
Right, okay.
the good one, the good
A
school.
good school.
I would have preferred to go to the other one,
Yeah.
but never mind. And so to do that, she worked.
What school did you go to?
Notre Dame
Oh,
High
Notre Dame.
School.
All right, okay.
You see, oh my goodness. No, it was at that time. Thank God, it's changed a lot, and I have every respect for those Notre Dame sisters now, because they're doing tough jobs in difficult places.
Yeah. And what was your primary?
St. St. Bridget's, Baillieston,
St.
and then
Bridget's,
St.
Baillieston.
Paul's.
And
St.
St.
Paul's,
Paul's.
White Inch.
St. Paul's and
St.
White Inch, right.
St. Paul's, White Inch, yeah.
You've kind of touched on it there a wee bit about, your dad talking about your vocation, but I take it your mum and dad were quite a faithful family.
Oh, yes. I was told by one of my father's sisters, he came from a family of 6, plus 2 cousins. The house wasn't full enough, so they had 2 cousins staying with well. All right. And in St. Mary's, Abercrombie Street, they were.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So I had a good background. But this aunt told me at one point, of course, you're from a dysfunctional family. I thought all families were dysfunctional.
To a certain
When you
degree,
see
probably.
them, they fight, they carry on. But no, I had a very, very good background. My grandmother and grandfather, both from Ireland.
Yeah.
On my mother's side.
Uh-huh.
But there again, my mother, if I said anything bad about my Irish cousins, these Irish students, and she said, keep your mouth off the Irish.
You're very protective of our ancestry.
Okay, yeah. And then if I said something, if my cousin, Jack, he would come in, he was a sailor, so he'd arrive up every now and then, and he'd say something here in Scotland, and she said, keep your mouth off the Scots. Oh, yes, I'm Scottish, she'd say. Okay. And my dad, well, more or less the same, his father, Johnston, is a very Scottish name. And he came from, his grandfather was from Liverpool.
Right.
But he had immigrated to Liverpool to find work, the usual story.
Yeah.
And was in a factory producing rubbish, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were very dirty job, But he got on great with his mates, and they were nearly all Irish.
Yeah.
So he married one of their sisters.
There
But he
you
got
go.
on well in his job, so he came up to Glasgow eventually and settled in Glasgow. But that's the background,
So faith played a really important part in family life back then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But the thing is, and which maybe I see that more than you see, we're stuck in that formula that we've had, You go to Mass. You've got an obligation to go to Mass, right? You go to Mass and you go to confession. If you've done this, that, and the next thing, and then you get married and then you settle, and the parishes. It was a ghetto.
Yeah.
It was a ghetto. A lovely ghetto, if you like. We went to dances on Friday night after benediction to meet Catholic fellas. Of course, I went to the Locarno as well. And class. But that was the theory. Marry a Protestant. Oh, no way. You could be cut off. So there was that kind of Calvinistic mentality within the Catholic Church.
Right. Okay.
And you did it this way and you did it that way. And no other. But there was that basic faith there, that basic challenge, you've done some, pray to St. Anthony, say a Hail Mary to St. But we really believed that.
Yeah.
I remember a story of my cousin Jack, who he was older than me, and he lost a soldier, and he came crying to my grandmother. And it was his grandmother, well, you see, and she said, lost a soldier, well, don't cry about it, go and say a Hail Mary to St. Anthony. A Hail Mary. But never mind, they did this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so he went and said his Hail Mary, because she said, and he'll find it for you. All right. So he came back half an hour. Oh, see it there. She says, I told you now that St. Anthony would find it. He did not. I remember where I put it. All right, so he was expecting St. Anthony to come and hand him it.
Yeah.
Okay, but there was that faith, strong faith, and careful to instill it, but often the installation was of what you do and what you don't do. No?
Yeah.
So that has grown out of me in a way in the years, many years, but I'm thankful for it.
Sure. I mean, you spoke about the event where you're kind of you were introduced to the Verona sisters as they were known, but when you were younger, was a vocation something that you thought about? Was there anybody that might have been a catalyst for
You're
it?
joking. Well, I
No?
remember the first time they had this exhibition. I was much younger, maybe 16, and I remember eh, going to it and being fascinated,
Yeah.
fascinated. And I had, oh, but it wasn't a real thing, And I remember phoning a friend of my mother's who was a sister of charity, lovely woman, and I said, I want to be a nun. I didn't know about missionaries yet. And she said, well, that's fine. And you just finish your school, which is exactly what I was trying to avoid. All right. And then we will talk about it. No? And that flash in the pan, there was no way. If I couldn't get out of school because I wanted to become a sister,
Yeah.
I might as well stick on and see what
Yeah.
else is in the pot. It wasn't a real thing.
Yep. Yep.
But I remember she eventually came to my first profession in London, and she said, that's one we missed. Because she remembered back.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really, but it was a start,
So you gave us a wee kind of introduction to, your vocation and stuff like that. Was there anything that was surprising to you about deciding to follow a vocation? Was there anything that came as a surprise?
Number one, the amount of bread we had to eat in the morning. We had to eat 5 slices of plain bread with a wee roundy thing of butter. I didn't know it at the time, but we were lucky to have the butter. Because being international, that wasn't the idea. But, breakfast disappeared, kind of.
Yeah.
But quantity of food was enormous. I remember, I thought we were going to sacrifice all of that stuff,
Yeah.
And I don't think, life, silly things, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were following a semi-clausura, half clausura and half out, which has faded away, thank goodness. And I had a Glaswegian as a mother mistress,
Right.
Sister Veronica Morris, and for the Cookadens. Sorry, and she understood me.
Yeah.
She understood where I was coming from because we had a novitiate. They were almost all Italians. We had 2 Spanish, and we had an Irish lady who's still there, God love her, Mary Paul from Tipperary, in the same group also. Another thing surprising, that you had to do daft things, like get down in front of somebody on your knees and say, sorry, you've done something, all right, and kiss the ground. Where are we here? I remember standing in the garden as novice, as a postulant, and I was in front because I was the smallest. So I never standing to attention in the garden, but you could see this big glass window where the professed sisters were. We weren't allowed to go there. And we saw this one sister. I saw her go down on her knees in front of the superior. And then, after a few seconds, she kissed the ground. So I said to Mary, we weren't supposed to talk, Mary, did you see what I saw? She answered, I'm going home tomorrow. But she didn't know. But these were the shocks that we had.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way of life, all right. But otherwise, I was happy enough there.
The term vocation, in its broadest sense, what does it mean to you?
In its broadest sense, it's a calling, something that attracts without without you being able to put your finger on why you feel like that.
Yeah.
What is it that you just not stop and think, just that was my experience. I have to try life as a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
Why on God's earth? I don't know. And I didn't even know the name of the founder because the founder had not been canonized.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he was kind of under a cloud, the
Mm-hmm.
Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't that attracted me. What was it? I learned later and fully accepted. What I liked about our congregation was kind of gung-ho,
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do it, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? I liked that attitude, which I didn't always find later on, but it was there.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on. Um,
That,
are there any particular saints or scripture passages that kind of define or inspire your vocation?
no, I wasn't that holy. Saints, no. And then I followed my mother's idea, actually.
Yeah.
I followed my mother's idea. She used to say, oh, I don't go to, I'm not interested even in going to Lourdes. I'll go if it's nice, but I'm not into radio or this or that. I just go to the boss at the top, the
Yep.
Holy Spirit.
There you go.
And more or less that was my attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't ever had a devotion to one saint or another,
Okay.
although some appeal to me greatly. Francis, for example, the house I'm staying in at the moment.
Yeah.
Why on earth did I not choose Francis? Why? I remember too, here in Glasgow, that when one priest, Father McGuchan, who used to be the administrator, I think, in the cathedral, um, he had been a priest, not our parish priest, he was a curate. And he said to me, being a missionary, being a sister is fine, but choose a missionary congregation that is based in Scotland, has been here for a long while, you know them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what he's talking about now, culture.
Yeah.
You get a culture. So forget it if I'm not listening to you. That was phased out completely. I remember him saying it, but I wasn't attracted at all. It didn't make me stop and think, oh, what is this,
Mm-hmm.
No. I want to be a Verona sister.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Later I understood what that means,
Mm-hmm.
and there is this, yes, no, when
Yeah.
you begin to discern your vocation. Yes, no. I think this is rubbish, but we can get on with it. And yes, this is the way that I want to spend my life.
Mm-hmm.
Out on a mission among ordinary people, probably very poor, out in a very faraway place, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I mean, there'll have been different times in your life, I guess, where you've had to draw strength from somewhere. Where do you draw strength from?
friendship.
Friendship.
I was very, very lucky. Blessed by having what the Irish call an anam cara. I still have her. She's up there now. One of our own sisters, Italian from Pesaro in the Adriatic. Is that right? Okay. Pesaro in the Adriatic. I arrived in Asmara, Eritrea, was sent to this community, and she was teaching in that community, well, in a school attached to it, Santa Familia. And immediately, she was the one that spotted me, And, right, we did, she was ready to do daft things, like, well, we seesawed once because it was a building site still. They were still building the place, the actual building of the university. And so we found this thing for flattening concrete, I presume, all right, and a plank, and we laid it across the town, and then we did seesaw. I mean, we slid down a banister and get into trouble because we tore our, not habits, but we had a grumbule. What do we call that in English? Oh, a pinafore.
Pinafore,
right.
yeah.
Pinafore. Okay, and it got there because we were sliding down the banister. Yeah. And stuff like that, and she said,
Yeah.
but there was a bond there, and we went through a very, very difficult time it was the University of Asmara. We were young sisters. I had not a degree, and this is the funny thing, I actually studied at the same time as teaching. I was teaching at a lower grade and I was studying,
Yeah.
and I finished my studies as a student of Bologna University. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would a woman who hated school do that? Because of the mission. It was going to be good for the people. They were going to get educated and be able to lead themselves. So this was a beautiful thing. But she helped me in my studies also, and a bond grew up.
Yeah.
A bond grew up, and when we had that terrible time, both of us went through it. The whole community went through it, but she was the one that would grab me by the hand and say, "Come on, let's run around that corridor," just to get rid of the tension,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And also another time. Well, we finished school. We finished school very late in the evening because we had the worst timetable, because most of the teachers there were volunteers, and therefore they had to teach this time or that time to suit their own timetable. And we had 10:20 at night we finished, So, and we came upstairs, the pair of us, and we went to the foot of Our Lady's statue. And beautiful. We lived in the building, actually. We didn't have a house. And we kissed Our Lady's feet, and our eyes met. And she said, "There's a bottle of vermouth downstairs, which was kept for the priest who came for confessions." She's downstairs. So the two of us went down the stairs again and into the refectory, got the bottle out, had a nice drink of vermouth. It was rubbish stuff, actually, when you think of it, 'cause it's locally made, but it was vermouth. And we finished it wasn't a full bottle, and put it back. Went up the stairs again, kissed Her Lady's feet. And she said, "There's still some stuff in that bottle." Down the stairs again. And we had some more.
Yeah.
And we came up quite happy. Next morning we heard about it because the sister who was in charge of the bottle, "Who even had this bottle?"
Raging.
We didn't admit it. No. But that way of dealing with the situation, no? And these are external pranks, if you like, but the feeling, that I could lie, say anything. I could be guilty of anything, but I was still close. And the same for her, So we enjoyed that together. Friendship is the thing.
Friendship, absolutely. That's a great message. So you were saying that you were in Eritrea for 57 years.
Yes.
When did you arrive? What was your overall first impressions, and how were you received by the people?
When I arrived on October the 11th by plane. because Eden had bombed the Suez Canal, so you couldn't take a ship, by plane on the 11th of October 1964.
Right.
I arrived there. We went immediately to work. There were many sisters there, and I think we were about 20 odd sisters in the community at that time. Think of it now. All right. And I was welcomed. I was fine. I didn't feel a stranger, although they had expected a tall English woman. Well, when they saw me, they knew that tall wasn't right, all right? But later on, I let them understand that, no, I'm not English.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
always do.
Yeah.
All right. And, but we have different values. Okay. And I felt very accepted. But I was teaching men, mostly men, of a class, it'd be 1 in 4, 1 in 10 for men. For every 10 men, there would be 1 woman student.
Okay.
So they had to be cultivated,
Yeah.
and they were. So we knew them. I met recently, just before leaving, I met one again, and these older men were just desperate for education.
Yeah.
And as the thing grew, we had the younger men and women as well, more women, a better place to study. I always felt more than welcome, more than welcome.
Yeah.
And that was among the people who were mostly from the Highlands. And a lot of them were Catholics. And we were, 30 years later, accused of celebrating, of accepting in the university Catholics, only Catholics, which wasn't true at all.
Okay.
But the thing was, there were so many Catholics because many of them were ex-seminarians and they had had an education.
Right. Okay.
So they had enough education to start thinking about college and university levels. So that's the thing. Then they accused us of having so many Catholics in the place at that time. But we had Catholics, we had Muslims, very friendly people, other Christians, Orthodox, some with no religion at all. But they were all one mix in the first years that I was there. And finally I qualified myself and was teaching at a slightly higher level. And later on, that was the first impressions. I didn't feel strange. No. But, I've heard that it's a bit of a gift of the people native to this area of the world.
Yeah.
That we don't feel strange. It's the others that might have to feel strange, no matter where we are.
So straight into teaching. Where was it you actually taught? Was it at the university?
The university. Well, we started this university. Right,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
against a lot of struggle. And the 2 sisters who started it. They did a lot of things eventually that I would not agree with, but by God, they had courage. I mean, they faced the emperor of Ethiopia because Eritrea was part of Ethiopia. And they did a wonderful thing. Everything just to physically build the university. And that was under attack too, because the Masons didn't want it. They tried to sabotage the building. And so we were teaching. The level I was teaching was the level below the level I was at myself.
Okay.
Now, I had a better education because I'd been here.
Yeah.
Right? I had equivalent to hires eventually. And then going on, I had to study and teach at the same time. And that's why it took a bit longer.
Yeah.
And I think that it was well received.
Excellent. So, in Eritrea, the Comboni Sisters obviously had an impact in education. Did they impact in other environments, in other ways?
Yes, um, hospital.
Right, okay.
We had the hospital. We came into Eritrea from Sudan.
Hmm.
Uh, we crossed over the border because we're Sudan and Eritrea, very close. Uh, Invited by a Comboni father. He wasn't, I don't think he was officially attached to Comboni's,
Hmm.
the order, the congregation, but he always worked, and had worked with our founder.
Hmm.
Then, 1914, well, I think before that, he came across as an army chaplain for the Italians. And I invited our sisters to come across because we need you. In 2004, in 1914, I think we went there, yes, um, and settled there. We did, but nursing was the first thing
Right, okay.
in a hospital. And our sisters worked in even the government hospitals after that.
Hmm.
The Italians had set them up, these hospitals. Then they passed over to the government,
Yeah.
And then we were teaching in Massawa, not teaching, hospital work. And when I think of it now, when there was no electricity to run fans, it's extremely hot there, and it's humid.
Hmm.
It's on the Red Sea. It's the port. You're always wet.
Hmm.
The climate is really awful.
Hmm.
And those sisters stuck it out for years.
Yeah.
Other congregations were there, but in the month of May, they upped tent and went back to Asmara because they couldn't stand the heat there. Not the Comboni Sister. We stayed there.
Toughed it out.
We toughed it out. But they would go up maybe for a couple of weeks for the retreat and a wee bit rest and then back down again.
Hmm.
And I said, hats off to you women,
Yeah.
And they lived through that. There's no way I could have then complained about the sound of what's it called? The thing that they use for a machine keeps the place cool.
Oh, a fan or a air conditioner,
there's
yeah.
a thing that blows cold. It's terrible.
Yeah.
No, I always slept there when I was there. I loved going there,
Yeah.
but I slept, and I always dreamt of being under a lorry which had left the engine running, and it was really the air conditioner. That's
The air
what they call it.
conditioner, yeah.
So I on my really they did well.
So an impact on education, an impact on healthcare. What were some of the challenges that you had to work under, or some things that you had to deal with when you were on mission in Eritrea?
Well, first of all, the guerrilla warfare that was going on always, and the ups and downs of that, Also, the fact that the University of Addis Ababa didn't want the University of Asmara.
Right, okay.
No, because they were a crowd of rebels.
Right.
And let's face it, they were. Okay. But they didn't want it.
Hmm.
And we had to fight it to the point of that one man, actually, he was one of the, what do we call it, managers of the building site. He actually ran away with the money for the pay for the men.
Oh, jeez.
And, sisters are not going to pay. And the men started putting acid stuff, I don't know what it was called, on the pillars that they had put in to try and ruin it. Underneath, it had been ruined. There was water in the foundations, stuff like that. Really, they tried to sabotage the building itself, but also academically, because many of us were young sisters struggling,
Yeah.
to teach at a level which was high. Well, of course, it was quite high. And we were only just prepared, sometimes not even prepared, let's face it, giving what we could. And didn't have the books and so on. And they would send up commissions up from Addis to examine us. And we went through these challenges. They put us through you know, what we used to call it a third degree
Yeah.
in questions. What are you doing? Why do you teach them this way? Why are you teaching? You haven't got the qualifications, stuff like that. And we had to face that. Then they insisted on having syllabuses that had to be printed out and handed to everybody, God, when I remember 3 weeks, I remember we were up all night. We shifted ourselves, working day and night to produce some stuff before they actually arrived. And
Yeah.
I remember Sister Pina sitting at the typing machine, and she was typing the book, and I said, put this on the syllabus on the books you need,
Yeah.
bibliography. And she's sitting there, and the tears are rolling down. She's tired, typing. God, I remember that, But we went through it. Fair enough. We did it.
So
There was a lot of challenges.
there was hostility to your efforts from the Ethiopian government and people at ground level as well. Yeah. On the
Yes,
ground.
oh yes, people,
Yeah.
There were a lot of hostility, and a lot of hostility also, well, not hostility, but what's happening here,
Yeah.
at congregational level, because our congregation had not aspired to a university before, although Cambodia had, but, that kind of thing. No, these people need it, no? And finally, the government overtook it
Yeah.
under Mengistu, still Ethiopia. And by that time we had spies in every class. I say spies, we had government agents in the class with a gun in their pocket. You're not supposed to know. And probably a couple of people from what we called the front, the guerrillas. But they were working in the building too. No, I remember just after liberation, well, nearly a year after, they were coming back because a lot of the guys had disappeared into the bush
Yeah.
to fight for their country. Eventually they won. And, you're mixed up in it. And we were on their side. Okay. And this fella came back. I remember his name, Haddis. Haddis came back, and he'd been working in the office. And I remember on one occasion, 75, when the fighters came into Asmara and were shooting the place up, and the other guys. And it had happened, I saw it myself, on Saturday morning, I cut short, we were in the building. The students had left that night and gone away home as quickly as possible. Some had actually stayed there, fearful of going into the street because of shooting. Okay. On Saturday morning, about 8:30, it started again to shoot here and there. Okay, and things got worse and worse because the soldiers had been shot at. I saw it happening from a window. These guys, soldiers, were going along the wall like this, and two of them fell. And they thought the snipers on our roof because we had a flat roof, which hopefully wasn't true, but they thought that. So they surrounded the building and we were inside. You know, when you get mortars thrown in at you and stuff like that, it was kind of,
You had mortars fired into the building where you were.
Oh, yeah.
Were you not terrified?
Yeah. Yes, but it's funny how the moment happens, We had workers in the building, who'd been starting their job. We were supposed to start the examination, the midterm examinations, or the term examination. In fact, I got a telephone call. The soldiers came in eventually, and we were told that they would find the bad guys, in the building, and when they found them, they would shoot us first. So that was a comfort. And They
They would
heard,
shoot you
yeah,
guys first.
first. That's what they told us. Oh, but they had us all, sisters and workers, in the main foyer, we used to call it, of the US. Beautiful place. And the phone rang. And I'm an idiot. Picked the phone up, which I shouldn't have done. So a gun levelled at me. A rifle. No. And I said, I picked it up. So undercover, somebody phoned me and said, I'm phoning from one of the students. I'm phoning from the commercial bank. He says, where he works. He says, will there be the examinations today? And I can't remember saying this, but one of our sisters told me later that I said, the only examination that will be held at the University of Asmara today will be the examination of conscience. And I can't remember saying that. I told me she said I did say it. All right, sir. Then put the phone down and then get down your hands and knees. So, I mean, we went through these times. All right.
Yeah.
Why did I get into this mess? Can crush your mind, but no problem. There was a Canadian priest there volunteering. He was a bit of it. And he had a brush with a white tea towel on it, you know, truce flag. And I went downstairs one time because this had to go down to what we called the semi-underground passage that there was, you know, classroom we had in it. And we're standing, and I went down to, and I don't like this. I don't want to die like a rat in a trap. So I ran up the stairs again, tripped, fell, and my veil came and was lost. We wore veils at the time. My veil was lost. And I remember the priest saying to me, Sister, this is no time to lose your veil. And then he went off with his flag. And they eventually came in. And they took this young fellow, Haddish, and they were pulling him about a lot. He was working in the office, had been one of our students. And they said, he's a traitor, and they were punching and kicking him. When one of the colonel, I think he was, came from where he had been, round the building, and he said, what are you doing that? This young man, he has an ID card. Leave him.
Yeah.
Years later, when they did come, you know, the fighters took over, and this fella had come back in again, and talking to me, I said, "But, you know, they had you down for one of the fighters, no, one of the gang there." I said, "Was it right?" He said, "Yeah, I was."
It was, all right. Jeez.
He was undercover,
Kept
you
his
know,
cards
and
close
we
to
had
his
them all
chest.
over, you know.
Yeah.
And then you had, but in a way, you know, you took all that kind of thing as natural because, and you'd rather the shooting than an earthquake, I'm telling you that.
Right.
We have earth tremors there,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never felt so desperately afraid in my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak. And it didn't happen. Nothing fell down, you know. But, I mean, for a building to tremble like that
Yeah.
for 10 seconds or something.
Jeez.
But only twice I felt it.
It's not always a part of the world you'd associate with.
Oh, yes, it's on the line.
Oh, is it?
It's
Is
on
it?
the Rift Valley
Oh,
line.
that's my lack of geography knowledge there. That's his sister.
Anyway, but if you like, it was in a way exciting. It was different, you know. You had to face silly challenges like that.
Yeah.
And we were never really in any real danger, you know.
And you spoke earlier on about the ratio of men to women in the educational system. Was getting like girls into education a challenge?
Yes, at the beginning there were very few when I was young doing that. But you see, we had girls' schools, and we had an Italian school run by the Italian government, which is still there, by the way. My head's the wrong shape. And we had these girls, so they were being educated up. and wanted to go on to study. No?
Yeah.
So a lot of them
So you played your part in,
we
getting
played a
girls in
part in
education,
getting the
and that's
girls in as well,
that's really
and encouraging them because they wouldn't speak to you when you asked a question in class. No, they would go,
very quiet and shy. Yeah.
"Take your hand away from your mouth, woman."
You obviously touched on some memories and things there,
Yeah.
but do you have any kind of particular standout memories or stories from your time in Eritrea? Anything that sticks out for you?
Yes, the time I met my guardian angel.
Okay, tell us about
I'm really sure it was my guardian angel. He's going to batter me now because he doesn't like me keeping on repeating this one. But by this time, I was working out in the desert. The furthest out mission, in the sense there was no other congregation, there were no other priests or churches around at all for at least 70 kilometres. No, 100, sorry.
that.
Nothing.
Well,
There's
jeez.
nothing right. Because during the 30 years of war, we had been forbidden to go to that area.
Okay.
So we had started going there. And I was the driver. So I left our house early in the morning, got down, no road, but no, you enjoy that too. Okay. And got down to the river, which was usually dry, and it did have what they called an an Irish bridge. Do you know what an Irish bridge is?
No.
It goes under the water.
Right. Okay.
And it does go under the water. It's a road, solid, which is built from side to side. You know, usually it's dry, but when the rains come and are lashing down,
Yeah.
it's covered over.
Yeah.
Quite deep, so watch it. But if you know it's there and there's a bit of water, you take that way across because you know you're not going to find a boulder in the way or something else.
Yeah.
So I got down to the river and it was full, absolutely coming down. There was a lorry at the other side on its side. And something else, can't remember exactly what it was, but something else had been in trouble. And I thought, I was alone. I'm not crossing there. Oh no, I'm too scared, I'm not going. I'll sit and wait till it goes down, but that could be hours and hours,
Yeah.
even days. And so I'm sitting there, window open because it's very hot. And a fighter, now this was in the time of Eritrea. We had one. Eritrea was independent. But
Okay.
there were still these guys, some of them, in the hinterlands where we lived. And he was dressed as one of the fighters. He was, we had very short trousers, rather tangled hair, beard usually, spats kind of on, sandals, Congo. Came up and he spoke to me in broken Italian. He said, "Tu non paura. Don't be afraid. Do this. Close the window." Turned it, and he told me what to do. Put it into first, second gear. Then slowly, slowly, slowly go across, slowly, slowly. Don't look at the water, look at the other side. Slowly, slowly. Those ones are stupid, they looked at the water. And then slowly, slowly go across. No problem. Do that. So I said, we have a problem. I am afraid. And he opened the door, and I should have been afraid of that, but he opened the door. He pushed me to the other side of the car and got into the driving seat, closed the door, and repeating each instruction. No, close, put the window wipers on, put it in first gear, I think it was first or second. And he said, then slowly, and he did it. And he drove me across that river. And I feel the river, the water, kind of pushing you. No, slowly, slowly. Got to the other side, made absolutely sure that all four wheels were out of the water,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then got out the car, closed the door, said, see, that's the way you do it, all the time. Nambaura, don't be afraid to see. And of course, I said, oh, thank you very much. So I turned around to get some money to give him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't there. So I looked. He wasn't there. He wasn't going back the river. He could have. They walk these things, no problem.
Yeah.
Looked on it. He wasn't anywhere to be seen.
Jeez. And you'd got across the river.
And I got across the river, safe and
There you
sound,
go.
and dry. And I know it was him because, but you see, here's where Irish or Celtic heritage comes in. We know the angels can change their form. They can transform as they please, to do a certain protection. St. John Bosco is a case in point, no?
Yeah.
He had that big duck that arrived every now and then. Grigio, I think they called him in China. Well, yeah, that's a stands out in my head. And other things that stand out, a lot of so many things,
Yeah.
But just what's beautiful about it is to feel part of a community
Yeah.
of which you are very different.
Yeah.
Being white, Christian, woman,
Mm-hmm.
in a Muslim society. We're all Muslims out there.
Mm-hmm.
99.9%. We had about 40 Christians, including the babies. We were there, but we weren't there to serve that community. We did also,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not why we were out there. It was to have contact with the local people.
Yeah.
Well, Tigray, I learned a bit of their language, and they became possessive of it, by the way.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in the marketplace down there, and these two fellas came and they were soldiers, but they weren't dressed as soldiers. There's something about Eritreans. So they had come up to me and they spoke to me in Tigrinya, which is, I know the bad words in Tigrinya, but I don't really know the language because I had to teach them English.
Yeah.
Right. So they came up to me, said something in Tigrinya, and the man on the stall, who was a Tigray and a Muslim, said, he said to them, oh no, she doesn't know any Tigrinya. No. She has perfect Tigray, because that was a bit of a aggravation there, no?
Mm-hmm.
She knows perfect Tigray, which was his language, no? But she doesn't know any Tigrinya. And I'm saying, oh my God, I hope they don't know Tigray, because I did know Tigray, but not enough to have a conversation, you know.
Yeah.
I knew how to get round daily,
Yeah.
And this man was kind of saying, she belongs to us.
Okay. Yeah.
She knows only Tigray, she doesn't know Tigrinya. And Tigrinya is, it's a big mistake. But they said the first official language of the country is Tigrinya. Now that's the language of the Highland people.
Okay.
And they're a bossy lot. And the others resent it a wee bit.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. So you've had nearly 6 decades of experience of being a missionary. You probably have an idea of what are the most important qualities of characteristics that a missionary must possess. What do you think they are?
Oh, I think it's so diverse. I would say nowadays, like all religious congregations, open up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of the world as you find it, which we are, of course. Be among the people. And I think especially for missionaries, that is important. Be among the people, not above them, teaching. You see, for years we were the educated ones. We were the nurses and the sisters in school and so on. And we were cut above the others? No. We have to be the leaven in the bread, not the bread.
Wonderful.
I think that's important. But it's something we have to try to learn, because there's been this kind of, not division, but this kind of, oh, sister. You know. And that was okay. That was, in fact, that was the way it was done. And thank God it was done. Thank goodness we had missionaries in Nigeria. Because now we've got Nigerian priests. And most of them are good priests.
Yeah.
You know? So we have to be open to that. Now it's their turn to come and help us.
Yes.
And then we'll go back and help. That's no problem. We'll all be mixed, and we're mixed here anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think the missionary has to have that feeling of the community. See, the Pope Francis is leading us, for me, very well in this direction. And that's why he's got so much opposition.
Sister, what would you say, again, drawing on your experience, what are the positives and negatives about being a missionary?
Well, for me, being a missionary, a religious missionary, has helped me in a personal way to develop, to grow in spirituality, shall we say. Not in religion, but in spirituality. Not despising religion, on the contrary. But what are we about? And this is not just being religious, being a Christian, being a person, being a human being. What are we all about? What is this business of religion? Of faith? Relationship with this God who leads us on. And he's not a big fella in the sky with white beard. No. And when I've discovered things that 20 years ago I didn't know, or I knew somewhere, but not with this thing, or with my heart. For example, I like dogs, I like animals, but it's the same with the flowers or anything. You just look at it and you say, what is it? When a dog looks like it was like that. But why do I feel that? What is cute? It's the presence of God. It's the Spirit of God who has created that thing. And says, isn't it marvellous just how you feel?
Yeah.
Being human and attached. This is a gift of God. He is revealing himself to us all the time.
And you feel like being a missionary has opened that up even more?
Yes.
Yeah.
And being a missionary, therefore, is the privilege of being able to say that to other people.
Yeah.
Open your eyes. Look around you. Enjoy yourself. I remember a student, but maybe 2 years ago, I met him again at the British Embassy. Met him again. And he said, he had been my student at the university. And the lesson was at 6 o'clock in the evening. And he told me, he said, I can remember very clearly, you were teaching us, but then you said, stop. Look out of the window at the sun. The sun was setting and it's beautiful. The colour was fantastic. Just look out of that window and enjoy that for a few minutes. He said, you did that, and then you started the lesson again. We went on. And he said, but he remembered that.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing, to be able to help people to get in touch with something so wonderful. There's no way we can really understand it, but we can enjoy it.
Spot on.
So, yeah,
And the term mission itself, what does it mean to you?
the term mission,
Yeah.
go,
Go. Go out.
go
Simple
out,
as that. That's it.
go. Mm.
And so, is that what you would say to lay people as well, like, in terms of how they could live out their mission? Is it just that case of, go
Go.
out? Yeah.
Yeah. When you're well, doing mission appeals, I'm sorry, but it comes out of me. You say to people, go out. It's you that's the missionaries. You've got to be. That's what our Lord said. And he didn't say it to a bunch of people that were dressed up in a funny way. He said it to every person who accepted him in their lives. Go. Go out and tell the others. And last week I said, go out and smile at someone. Even if he's wearing a red, white, and blue scarf. Smile at him. But it's true, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, of course, of course. In terms of ourselves, like Missio Scotland,
Mission Scotland's very
you, you've got very, very good knowledge of Missio Scotland and the Pontifical Mission Societies, probably in terms of the work that we do here and the work that gets done overseas and things like that. Why do you think, as an organisation, it's important that people support Missio Scotland? What makes us special?
I didn't get the last bit. People's report.
No, why
A
do you think
rapport.
why do you think it's important that people support Missio Scotland?
Very important, because the majority of people don't go out. If they do, they go out to see, to have an idea of the experience of the mission. No. Or they go out, and even their missionaries themselves here, they help with the wayside, they help in other initiatives like that, food programs, they're always in for it. No. They are being missionaries. But Missio has to solidify that. In fact, I got a no from one of the priests, not in this diocese or whatever, for the mission appeal. He said, no, because I don't want to ask people for more money, because it's always, 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 I will send a donation. And my reply was, yes, but there are two aims for mission, as I see it, Mission Scotland, to keep in mind to people the mission that we're all on, and money. And now I'm saying to people, I don't really care about the money part. If you got something, fine. But it's not the most important. The most important part is that you have to consider yourselves missionaries, because you are. And I'm simply telling you about the work you help to do further on.
Yeah,
And that's important.
absolutely, absolutely.
It's important. Why? Well, look at the mess in the world today. And look at our situation here. We've got mission poured into us we've got immigrant peoples. How do we treat them? How do we, as Christians, accept other people? We are all immigrants, if you look at it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember my uncle, who was loving his history, one time saying, what are you? Are you British? Are you really British? He said, of course I'm British. I'm British. He said, the English aren't British. They're incomers. He was 90, they're incomers. But yes, if you look at it, they are. But so the Scots are, in it. We came from Ireland originally, right?
Yeah.
And before us, there were the Picts. God knows who they kicked to. We're all immigrants, if you like. What makes it difficult is when the immigrant wants you to follow their ways and give up your own. Then you become invaders. All right, and we're against that. But there are so many. I was sitting in Buchanan Street bus station waiting for a sister one day. And there was two young fellas, a bit as tall as you, strangely enough, both Chinese. And they were talking to one another in broad Glasgow. And I mean, they were so obviously Asian. They were together. They were having a conversation.
Yeah.
Good, that's fine. That's the spirit I think we should welcome in people. We're all Joe Thompson's parents. No. And whether I call you black or white, or I love Billy Connolly when he says, I am a Scottish person. Powder blue. Yeah, he's got a point.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the Comboni missionaries themselves worldwide, what's the situation for the congregation?
In crisis, but I think we all are. In crisis in the sense that we have taken the bull by the horns. We are more than 1,000 yet. But there you see, we have so many African and some Asian people working with us. And African sisters who are they are Combonis. We also have started African congregations, but they're in loco, they're their own congregations now.
Yep.
They were trained, whatever you want to call it, until a certain point. Then training their trainers to be, but Africans. But we do have a lot of African sisters. But I must tell you, I got a shock that just last night we're talking about things in our own congregation, and it seems that some of the African sisters want to work in their own countries.
Okay.
No, Comboni for me shouldn't do that. Can work in our own countries, but we have to be open to working with others.
Sure.
Because otherwise you become a local thing.
Yeah.
I think the Comboni, and we're trying to reorganize the congregation. We call it redesign it, so that we have less provinces and cut down on administration of the congregation as far as we can. And we've got a good chance to do it because in my congregation there are 2 Scots. One of them sitting in front of you. And the other one is Sister Anne-Marie Quigg from Ardrossan, and she is the Mother General of our congregation.
Yeah.
And therefore, huh?
Yeah.
She'll do a good job, she will.
Spot
She's organised. But this is what we want to do. Organise in order to not take so much organisation, so much administrative jobs to do, and have more people on the mission. And our focus now, we're not quite sure how it should go, because we too got bogged down, I think, with schools, hospitals, building of schools and hospitals, even for, not for ourselves, but for others,
Yeah.
and other infrastructures like that. No, we've got to go out.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do that.
Sister, we're just about to come to the end of the wee interview here, but what I usually do is I usually end it on a light-hearted note, and I ask the interviewee if they could tell us something about themselves that maybe other people don't know, and that can be anything. Is there anything about you that we don't know, or are you an open book?
I don't know. What am I? That they don't know.
Well, maybe a lot of folk maybe didn't know that you were a talented musician. Who knows?
No, probably not. A lot of people don't know that. The talent is still there because you don't unlearn music, and the love for it, don't unlearn it. Yes, that's one thing that people don't know about me in general.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know.
We had, in the past, we've had Sister Placida, who told us that she liked to do Doris Day impersonations. For example, that was one of them.
Brilliant.
That was probably one of the more colourful admissions, but
Oh, I don't know. My signature tune used to be, 40 years ago, used to be the Jilly Peace song.
oh wow.
Yeah, which I didn't know, but it was a Saverian father, Italian Saverian father, who actually said, "Why don't you sing the Jalopy Show, you're Scots," in the Kerring church which we used to have, no? And I had to learn this song and sing it. So I had, that was my signature tune.
Oh, there you go. There's not many
But and I
people that.
like singing a song or two.
Yeah, yeah. There's not many people that tinkle in the ivories and sing the Julie Peace song. So there you go, Sister Mary Thomas. Thank you very much for your
Thank you for
time
making it easy.
today, and I wish you all the best and God bless.
God bless. And God bless you for the mission work, which is absolutely important. I'm not joking.
Thank you,
We need
Sister.
it. But people, I think you should go more forcefully tell people in the parishes what mission is. They're not aware of it, that mission comes from the top.
Yeah,
Mission Scotland is important because it's our mission,
yeah,
our contribution to the big family.
absolutely.
We have to get this into our minds.
And we'll do our best to do that. Thanks again, Sister. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Missio Scotland is a Scottish branch of the Pontifical Mission Societies, the Pope's official charity for overseas mission. To learn more about the work of Missio Scotland, you can visit our website www.missioscotland.com. You can like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Missio Scotland. You can also follow us on Twitter, Missio_Scotland, and on Instagram, Missio Scotland. If you would like to donate to Missio Scotland, visit www.missioscotland.com/donate. You can also call us on 01236 449 774 or send donations to Missio Scotland, 4 Laird Street, Coatbridge, ML5 3LJ. Please keep us in your prayers. Thank you and God bless.